Hi, Lana. Where are we going?
To America's Historic Triangle.
And we're going there with no kids.
Yes, we are. And it's going to be glorious.
No children. So happy. I love them, but I'm so happy. Well, we had a fantastic night last night, and staying at the Holiday Inn Express in Cleveland, Tennessee. Had some storms. I didn't record a lot of yesterday or this morning because it was pretty much dark the entire time. But we are stopped at a Love's in North Carolina and headed to Williamsburg. So we're going to do some cool things when we get to Williamsburg. We're going to get to tour the grounds on Williamsburg. We're going to get to tour Jamestown, and we're going to tour the battlefield there. So anyway, it's just me and Elena this trip, and I'm looking forward to doing more historical things, informational things, instead of the kids stuff. I mean, it's fun when the kids are with us, but it'll be nice to do adult things that the kids don't care about. So, excited about the trip. We have stopped off in at a rest area here in Virginia, and it is cloudy. Like, it is so foggy and cloudy out here. I don't know if you'll be able to hear anything because we're literally just next to the interstate, but I like Virginia. It's cool. This is actually the first time I've driven through Virginia. Elena and I both come through on a bus, but this is the first time actually driving through, and it's pretty neat. It's also gotten very cold. We left this morning, it was in the 70s. In kind of eastern southern Tennessee, and here it is dropped way down to the 60s. So, and it's into the 50s now, I think. But yeah, it's getting a lot cooler. So, a bit chilly week. But yeah, we're going on. Good morning. We are in beautiful Yorktown, Pennsylvania.
No, Virginia.
Yorktown, Virginia. And I don't know where we are. So we have come to Williamsburg to do all the stuff in Williamsburg. And well, the first thing we're going to do is starting out here at Yorktown Battlefield. And it's really cool, like coming up the Colonial Parkway, there was no markings on anything. There was no lines, no anything. Speed limit was 45 miles an hour. Really cool way to get to somewhere you really feel kind of immersed in that time period. And so going around the battlefield today is going to be kind of neat because we'll be able to see a lot of the things that really haven't changed since the Revolutionary War. So I'm pretty excited about it. She's a history buff. So we're going to see what we can get into. Let's go.
The Allied cannon fire shook the earth without pause, firing 24 hours a day.
This is inside the ship, or it actually would have looked like. very low clearance. So the Yorktown Monument was pretty cool, and it's kind of cool that the resolution to erect the monument was made on my birthday. So that was kind of neat. It's a little bit of a walk across a pretty good footbridge. That
It's really not a bad walk.
it's pretty nice. It's a easy walk. But you can drive right up to the monument. There's a little parking lot right there. But it's a pretty cool little place. And now we're gonna probably go on the driving tour of the battlefield, which that'll be kind of neat because these things have been there since the 1700s. So let's go find a battlefield. The Yorktown battlefield. When you're here, these signs is what you want to keep up with. From Redoubt 9, you can see where the British defensive line was dug. There's Redoubt 9. And that is Redoubt 10.
So obviously they're not piping in sounds here, but if you stand here and listen, and I'm pretty sure that it's just cars going over like the main bridge that's crossing the James River, but it sounds like gunfire, like cannons firing. If you just sit here and listen. Maybe I'm overthinking it because of where we are, but it just, if you're real quiet, it's almost like you can hear the sounds of battle out here. It's really cool.
Yeah, the sounds of battle in that tree.
And the tree that's got birds in it that's squawking.
Sharing some quick information with you on the flintlock musket. This was the standard weapon of the Revolutionary War soldier. The American, British, French, and German forces all used a similar weapon. And the flintlock earns its name from the ignition system. You'll notice here in the jaws is a sharpened piece of flint. When you pull the trigger, that flint will come forward and strike this steel hammer, creating the sparks needed to discharge the weapon. There are a few key reasons why this was the weapon of choice during the Revolutionary War. One good reason was the cost. Rifles were available at the time. They were more accurate at longer ranges, but they were also much more expensive. For the price of a single rifle, you could purchase 4 muskets. Rifles were fashioned one at a time by a gunsmith. It required some rifling or grooves in the barrel. This weapon, on the other hand, could be mass-produced at a cheaper cost. And when you're arming large groups of soldiers on a budget, cost is something that you have to keep in mind. So this was the more affordable option. Another advantage of the musket over the rifle was a higher rate of fire. Once again, a rifle contains grooves or rifling in the barrel. That makes the weapon accurate up to about 300 yards or so, but it also adds to the loading time because you have to put in some effort ramming the patch and ball against that rifling or resistance in the barrel. The weapon I'm holding, this is referred to as a smooth bore. So it lacks the rifling, it's easier to load, and everything that you need to load the weapon is conveniently contained right here in this cartridge, the powder and the musket ball. So instead of 1 shot per minute with a rifle, a well-trained soldier with a smooth bore musket would be able to load and fire 3 to 4 times per minute. That higher rate of fire was crucial on the battlefield. A key feature on the musket that the rifle lacked is this item right here, the bayonet. This was a powerful weapon of intimidation. Soldiers might fire a few shots, level their muskets, and then advance across the field to find their opponent. If you were on a battlefield and you saw a wall of sharp bayonets headed your way, what would you do?
Turn around.
Turn around and head the other way, right? You're going to run or retreat. And that was your opponent's goal, to push you off of the battlefield and take that ground. That's how victory was achieved during this time period. You didn't necessarily need to inflict more casualties on your opponent, but you were expected to take the battlefield. It's also important to remember that the weaponry shaped the tactics of the time. You may have seen Revolutionary War combat depicted in film or art, and what you typically see are long lines of soldiers, shoulder to shoulder, standing on an open field, shooting at one another. What is your impression of that? Smart way to fight?
Strategically, not technically.
Okay, it tends to perplex a lot of people. Why not scatter out? Why not take cover? Why stand in those lines and shoot at one another?
It's not rifled, so you're going to have the musket ball
Less
flying all
accuracy,
over.
yeah.
So you're going to have mass shots to hit anything.
Correct. Due to the limitations of the musket, you have to adjust your tactics or formation. The men would concentrate their fire in a line and then send it all towards a common target in the hopes of hitting more. The maximum effective range on this weapon is only about 100 yards. So you would be lucky to hit your intended target at, say, 80 yards or so. So that explains the linear formations. Also keep in mind that communication is crucial on the battlefield. with hundreds or thousands of muskets going off, the smoke and the noise produced by the weapon, the soldiers aren't going to be able to hear or see much. They're going to be disoriented and scared to death. So to maintain communication in that chaotic environment, the men had to be lined up close together. Half-cock fire lock. That's the safety on the musket. It locks the trigger in place. Handle, cartridge. Remove the cartridge from the box. No musket ball being fired today for safety reasons, don't worry. Prime. Pour some powder in the pan. Shut pan. Charge with cartridge. Everything goes down the barrel. Powder, paper, and musket ball. Draw a rammer. Ram down cartridge. Return rammer. Shoulder fire lock. So when the officers see their men all lined up at this position, what does that signal?
They're ready to fire.
Ready to go.
Ready to fire. Next three commands are to make ready, take aim, and fire. If you would like to cover up your ears, now is the time. Make ready. Take aim. Fire. Prime and load. And then you start that process all over again. Something I like to point out is the maintenance and care that goes into the musket. You can see from just a single shot how dirty everything got in that pan. So on my belt, I have a pick to keep that vent clear. If it's blocked, you'll have a flash in the pan. Also a brush to clean everything out.
And really, that's modern black powder, so even it's more refined than it even used to be.
Mm-hmm. Good point. The flint might need to be sharpened or replaced. Misfire rate of about 15%. If it's damp outside, that could be as high as 25%. So that's another good reason for the linear formations. If your musket doesn't go off, but the soldier to each side of you theirs does, it does compensate for that misfire to a degree. Any questions on the flintlock musket? Revolutionary War soldier carried about 50 pounds of gear on his person. 10 of that was the musket, cartridge box, knapsack, haversack.
Now, notice the, with that being a reproduction, is it the sights are not on there, obviously.
Correct.
But
Yeah,
did it have
no
sights?
sights. No sights on the weapon. The soldiers are going to aim in the same general direction and fire all at once. So no sights for precision.
Because when we were at Yorktown, the battlefield earlier, I noticed that even the cannon had some aiming points on it, and so it's interesting that the flintlocks didn't have any sights at all.
Musket ball just basically rattles all the way up.
It does.
Hours or days. How wide would the fabric be? Like the edge here. Just what?
But they would have that a little less often.
I believe so. Let me bring you a minute.
What was your take on Colonial Williamsburg?
I'm glad we had other things planned to do while we were here. It was a little underwhelming.
So didn't really find anything that you were interested in?
I mean, the things I was interested in, you had to wait for a tour, and the tours were like 30 minutes apiece, and we were never right there in time for a tour to start. The one tour I was interested in, we would have had to wait for 45 minutes before the next one to start. It just wasn't worth it.
So Lana has a good point that if you were thinking about, going on tours and things like that,
Also,
there are certain times.
we were behind like a couple of school groups, so it also dramatically impacted our visit today. So yeah, it would have been a different experience if we had not been there with a bunch of school kids.
And it was raining.
It was also raining, so.
And it does seem like Williamsburg is not as prepared for large crowds. There was one school group or two school groups that got in front of us going into a bakery, and it backed all the way out to the street. And it was just, obviously they were not prepared for that. And there weren't many things open. There were several things that we wanted to see, trades and whatnot, that weren't available because they just weren't open today. Maybe because it's Monday, maybe because it's raining, but it just didn't seem to have a whole lot of value, I guess. Yorktown, which is what we did yesterday, has had the most value of anything that we've done. And it was a really good museum, really good exhibit. The battlefield was cool, and then the town was really cool. So that's been the best one that we've done. Williamsburg was a little underwhelming. The market square, where all the modern shopping was kind of cool. Had a good coffee shop and some good places to eat there, but the Colonial Williamsburg, very underwhelming.
Go to the place where God will show us to possess.
It's this one right here. I think, just like dance space circle out there.
The term flag tax is also Okay.
First chicken rice, white line, waiting for that chicken thing on board. Second chicken rice, that comes later, shredder, and they come to that chicken rice. Wait down the next day, what's their status? Can you go back home to where they were taking from against their will? Captured by the what? Yes, they do. They need a labor resource.
Obviously, that was closed.
Floor and a mud chimney is a typical home for most middling planters in late 17th century. Unlike the nearby quarter of similar size that housed many unrelated. Notice I left it on the wall. Before 1705, enslaved Africans were permitted to carry firearms for hunting. If
Come on in, dear.
Oh yeah, I was making a fence the other day. I had a saw skip at home. Hey, be careful.
Oh, it's just right here. Okay, you okay?
I'm good.
Okay.
Welcome. We were about to start a musket demonstration. Every firearm invented after the matchlock has some means of creating the fire that it needs at that moment that it needs it, whether it's friction generating a spark or a chemical reaction creating a flash, but this weapon does not, so you've got to carry your fire around with you, which of course, from a modern perspective, is likely to seem like a bit of an inconvenience. But if you think about it, you know what better way to set off gunpowder than to shove burning rope into it, right? That's the way the weapon operates. Now the colonists here in Virginia in the early years come to rely very heavily on their firearms in combat against the Powhatan chiefdom, as they feel that these weapons give them some advantages. And for one thing, you know, the colonists find themselves up against warriors who, to a man, have been training with their archery since they were 5 or 6 years old. So if you've got over a decade worth of training with a military art before you ever see your first combat, you ought to be pretty good at it. And the English soldiers here effectively describe them as the best archers in the world, capable of hitting birds on the wing, putting arrows clear through people, and that sort of results. And so they feel they need some kind of advantage in going into combat against the Powhatan. And this weapon will give you twice the effective range as compared to the Powhatan bow. Being able to hit somebody who's that good with a bow before they're close enough to be able to hit you would be a useful advantage. And it's got exponentially higher knockdown power. These are weapons engineered for going up against armored troops and horse-mounted troops on the battlefields of Europe, which means you've got to be able to pierce armor and drop horses.
it hits hard. So range, hitting power, these are going to be sort of the tactical advantages of the weapon. And while these are important and these are useful, they're not necessarily the most important advantage that drove the colonists to rely so very heavily on this weapon system. Some of the men they've brought with them have prior military experience. Some of them even have a similar depth of skill as the Powhatan do. And some of the men they've brought have likely never seen a battlefield before in their lives. Tradesmen, craftsmen, laborers who've not been soldiers before but have to double as soldiers now, and they don't have the time to catch up in terms of skill level. It takes a matter of weeks to become proficient with that firearm. We could teach you how to use it today, and in a couple of weeks of practice, get you good at it. It does not require any great feats of strength to operate it. It doesn't require a high level of skill to be effective with it. It doesn't even require that you be in good physical shape to fight with it. And so all the way around, we end up seeing a weapon that is far easier to learn how to use. Just about anybody can be made into a reasonably serviceable soldier in fairly short order with it. And not only is this one of the key reasons why the colonists come to rely on it, it's one of the key reasons why the firearm ultimately takes over the entire battlefield. You don't have to have a warrior class in your culture anymore. You don't have to raise warriors from childhood anymore when that's what they're relying on. Far easier to learn how to use. And talking of the ease of use, let's go ahead and use it again. We're going to begin the process of making ready by first inspecting the priming pan for any still burning remnants of slow match left over from the previous shot. We want to get those out before we try to reintroduce gunpowder to it. Once the pan is clear, you will then prime your pan. So a little bit of gunpowder will be placed into the pan, in this case loading from a paper cartridge, which was a known practice in the time period, but not as common as loading from a charging flask, which you can see my colleague carrying there as well, or a bandolier, which would be reusable pre-measured containers. Once the pan is primed, you're going to blow off any excess powder, make sure there's nothing that could set the weapon off before you want it to go off, and then cast the weapon about and charge the piece. And so a measured amount of gunpowder placed down the barrel to propel the ball. The ball would then go right in on top of it. Now, again, because of the destructive potential of this weapon, we will not be using a musket ball today. We're using a paper wad instead. But that is going to be rammed to the breech with the scouring stick, seated tightly against the powder charge. And at this point, the weapon is loaded and primed. You recover the firearm, and now prepare your match. So we've got a little bit of gunpowder in the back, more gunpowder and in this case, simulated bullet down the front. You just need that way of setting everything off. So that slow match, that burning cord comes into it. You're going to make sure it's burning nice and hot, and then fix it into the serpentine portion of the mechanism. And once that match is set, the trigger will simply dip that burning cord into the gunpowder for you. So all that's left at this point is to open the pan, exposing the powder, aim the weapon, and squeeze the trigger. And again, it does tend to be a little on the loud side, so you may wish to cover your ears. Present your piece! Fire! And there we have the operation of the matchlock musket. That concludes our demonstration. If you have any questions about anything, we'll be happy to answer them for you. And if not, hope you enjoy the rest of your stay.
Wave.
I'll be here. Afternoon. Welcome to the guardhouse. You would find guards in a guardhouse, just like dogs are in a dog. The remaining men, they're going to stay in here on what I call ready reserve. So if something bad happens, this is your rapid response team. They can be anywhere at a moment's notice. So when they're in here, they're relaxing. You're allowed to take the armor off, hang your musket, sword, bandolier up, and just chill out a bit. But after 3 or 4 hours, the sentries and the rounders, they're going to get bored, cold, tired, hungry. And that's not a good combination for soldiers. These guys in here, they're not.
in 1607. This is the footbridge that goes out from the Jamestown Visitor Center to the archaeological site. Pocahontas. Pocahontas.
Looks like us.
Wait. Something real late.
Like that pit that's in red in front of you, man. See that yellow? Yeah, that's a filled-in pit there. I know it doesn't seem like much, but a lot of times what we're actually seeing is soil that's been replaced, right? Because they had just dug an earthen pit for storage, and then when they got done with it, they put other soil in and closed it up. So most of the human activity out here is represented by different colors or textures of soil. And not so much by brick foundations, although of course we do have, things like the Yorktown.
Yeah.
But you kind of figure in the 17th century, most of what they're building with is timber.
Yeah.
We might get the odd brick foundation here and there.
All right, so we've done all the things and all the places. We've done Williamsburg, Jamestown, and Yorktown. Jamestown and Yorktown were both wonderful experiences. There's a lot of things that you can actually really see and get close to and kind of feel like you're really experiencing something significant. Williamsburg was not that.
But it wasn't bad.
It wasn't bad.
It was just, I think what we were expecting, our experience was just different. And I think a lot of that had to do with we were there on a morning that it was raining.
Yeah, it was really rainy, really nasty.
There weren't a lot of things open. And every time that we were ready to go in and see something, it was like it was a guided tour and you had to wait for the next tour. We were never at the right place at the right time. And like at one stop, it was going to be like an additional 45 minutes for us to catch the next tour. And so that was disappointing. We are not really guided tour kind of people. So let me say that. We kind of like to roam around and see things for ourselves because we're not lingerers, or, we don't have to read all the things. And, we
enjoy museums and enjoy all the history that's there, but I'm not going to read everything.
We like to pick and choose things, that are interesting to us instead of listening, on one topic for an extended period of time. So I think that was, for me, the most, I wouldn't say disappointing, but that was the biggest difference for Colonial Williamsburg as opposed to the other two places, because the other two places let you have as much of an experience as you want. They had guided tours if you wanted them, but it was very easily to go and do and see all the things without having to wait for a group together.
Yeah, and also in Williamsburg, if LARPing is your thing, man, they will go along with the story all day long. They will talk about how things were back then, and then that's kind of the experience I guess you're looking for. That's not really the way at least we like to experience history. The LARPing live action roleplay was a little much for me. Trying to have a real conversation with somebody about something that's going on and they can't remove themselves from the character that's at that time. For me, it's a little more difficult because I don't play very well with that, I guess.
So we would 100% recommend all three of these places.
They're fantastic.
Definitely do the historic triangle. That saved us a little bit of money by doing that ticket. We purchased it through the Colonial Williamsburg site, so we had admission to all the things, and they just gave us a sticker at each place, and we could go on our merry way. So we absolutely would recommend visiting all these places. But I wish, for us, if our expectations had been different for Colonial Williamsburg, it would have been a different experience. Because if you're not really into, the guided tours and the, let's wait for a group together kind of thing, that may not be your jam. It wasn't our jam. So, but beautiful, beautiful place to visit. I think everyone should come here at least one time to experience it, because they do an excellent job at all three of these places of presenting the history of the area and, the significant American history events that formed our country. So
it was enjoyable, but we're gonna sign off now. We'll end in the video. I'm not sure how long it'll make. We spent 3 days here, but probably just enough to put into one video. So that'll be all for now. Bye.